Welcome, everyone. This is Galactic Storyteller. I have a special guest with me today, Robert Otey. You might know him from YouTube as 77G Slinger. And today we're going to be talking about how to get to the truth of what's going on in this world. Now, many of you come from a Mormon background, and so sometimes reaching for the truth might be a new thing. I'm going to ask you guys to put your emotion aside, to put your preconceived notions of what you think is going on and really listen to what's being said, because what we cover today may surprise some of you and it might challenge some of your paradigms. That's not a bad thing. I do want to start with a quote from Voltaire, and that is, "To learn who rules over you, see who you are not allowed to criticize." So we're going to see who he's talking about and how that applies in our world today. But I want to welcome Robert. How are you today?
Great, Madeline. Nice to be here.
Good, good. Now, you've been researching for over 25 years, correct?
Oh, yeah.
How'd you get started? What sparked that truth in you that you knew something was going on, you knew something was wrong, and you had to get to the bottom of it? What was that?
Well, it started actually real young, but, I always had questions about the entire system since I was a kid, and had some kind of, early illuminations in my teens, late teens. But really the deep research started in 1989 with the discovery of cold fusion by Pons and Fleischmann. The idea of free energy never occurred to me before that time. And that was kind of what really opened my eyes to a new paradigm completely, a planet run on free energy. So that's when I began my first investigations into free energy as a subject. And I've really concentrated mostly on cosmology, but over the last 25 years, it's pretty easy to see who's running the racket once you see how we're all being deceived about cosmology, for example.
Yeah, once you start pulling on one thread in the tapestry, it just leads to every thread. So it creates an entire picture, a different picture. So when you were looking at cosmology, what did you find?
Well, immediately I found that the science that we were taught is just fake. I mean, in 1976, I was going to American River College in Sacramento, my first year of chemistry in college. And, after about 6 weeks of grinding through all this mythamathematics and garbage and stuff about the nuke atom, my two professors said, look, this is a model. This nuclear atom does not exist. It's just something we're forced to teach you. This is part of the curriculum. But understand, this thing does not even exist. So, I went home, and my dad, he's a nuclear physicist. So I was like, hey, Dad, here's what I was told today. This nuke doesn't even exist. And he's like, don't worry, just do the algebra, And then I was like, I don't get how the math equates to something that's a myth, So that was my beginning of my eye opener to the false science. And as I approached it and began researching it myself back in like 1991, I came across the works of D.B. Larson, who was adamantly opposed to the nuclear atom, and he wrote a really good book called The Case Against the Nuclear Atom. And that's online. It's free reading. And I would encourage anyone to begin reading this, because then you begin to immediately understand how the science racket is rigged. I mean, this has been proven to be a fraud. He proved to be a fraud back in 1960. So, this has been over a half a century that they keep still teaching people that there's this thing called the nuclear atom. And it's always been a myth. So this is the very foundation of the frauds, which are built upon it. Quantum mechanics and string theory are just greater frauds built on a pre-existing fraud. And that's the way the science rackets run.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And where did you move from there?
Eventually I started finding out the truth. I started studying people like Victor Schauberger, who started actually explaining how the cosmos worked. Victor Schauberger's work is deeply immersed in nature. All of his discoveries were made through watching nature closely, being in the high alpine environments of Austria at the time. He came from a long line of foresters that had basically guarded the king's forest for about 400 years in Austria. So he was intimately involved in nature, and the observations he made, especially about the motions of trout in water, led him to understand how implosion works. And as a result of that, I began really studying vortices and implosion, which eventually led me to the work of Walter Russell, which has some problems, but it's a very good, solid cosmology in its core that explains how everything in the universe, from the electric elements to the electric galaxies, is created through electrical vortices. So Schauberger and Russell's work both support each other. And my work has really been to distill the truth out of both of them and find out what is the best explanation, because there were problems in Schauberger's work and Walter Russell's. And so my efforts have been devoted to basically trying to distill a clear and concise and credible version of an electric universe without the problems that they had in theirs.
So how would you sum that up for the viewers? What is the truth? If you could take just a couple of moments and create a culmination of their work and put it in terms of truth that we can understand, how would you do that?
I would say it ultimately leads to the proof that we have a creator, and the creator is universal mind, which is basically stated very clearly in the 7 Hermetic principles of the Egyptians, of Hermes Trismegistus Justus. Basically what we have is universal mind, which is sexless and formless, dimensionless, changeless, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. That means that the creator is everywhere and is responsible for everything. This universal mind is projecting from stillness into cubes. Space is full of cubes, it has planes of cubes. Is projecting all of this entire universe, this infinite universe, from points of stillness to planes of stillness and returning to points of stillness. And this is being done throughout the entire infinite universe simultaneously. So basically we're living in a holographic universe. It's an electric light, electric universe. There's nothing but electric force in the universe. This is the one thing that the creator uses to create this huge holograph that we're all living in.
Which is, I call our magnetic field, our bioelectric magnetic field. Is that an accurate description?
Well, in my work, I've removed magnetism from the equation, because, well, how do you make a magnet? Well, you electrify iron, right? How do you have so-called magnetism? You have to have a so-called electric current. So I say that magnetism is actually a component of electrical motion. And more properly, it would be called electricism rather than magnetism, because magnetism basically is saying that there's another force. And I'm saying that there is no magnetic force, there is no nuclear force, a strong force or a weak force, and there's no gravitational force. Gravity is electric, right? And there's no such thing as a nuclear atom, so the strong and weak forces are completely mythical. And so there is only one force. What I'm saying is this is an entire electric holographic universe.
Okay.
It is all being projected from universal mind, which is our creator, not some sky daddy, not some dude from a special tribe that's got a beard and he's on a throne and maybe he's hovering over the earth, watching over his chosen people, all that kind of stuff. To me, that's ridiculous.
He's not sitting on Kolob?
Excuse me?
He's not sitting on Kolob?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Not really. No.
Okay,
go ahead and explain that.
That's the Mormon God. That's the planet that he lives on and directs everything. So gotcha. I had to make a little joke about that.
Yeah, and we're all supposed to have our own planets as we become gods, right? According to the Mormons?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I got a good dose of it. I was actually working up in Kimmerer, Wyoming in 1982 on a big coal gasification project. And a lot of people I worked with from there were from Alabama, but there was a lot of Mormons there. And I worked side by side. And, they showed me their underwear with the stitch marks and, the holy underwear. And I heard the whole spiel, and I was like, the thumbum and the nimbum and the golden tablets and the salamander bands and all this crazy stuff. So I heard it all, I got a good dose of, and of course I thought it was ridiculous, especially the thing about the underwear. These guys were like, hey, if we die and we're not holding on to our underwear, we're going to be naked in heaven for all eternity. So this guy was saying you had to take a shower and hold your underwear in case you had a heart attack or something when you're in the shower. I was like, okay, I'll never become a Mormon.
Right. And a lot of people that watch my show, they are going through a faith crisis, a revamping of all of their belief systems. And so I feel like expanding away from Mormonism, looking at other things is really important, because once you start digging for the truth, it does bleed into all other aspects. But that's why I made that little joke there. But I want to go back to something that you said about gravity. There's no gravity. Yes. Will you please explain that a little more?
Sure. I actually wrote a book about it, and I'd be happy to put a link there. But
okay.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Newton invented the gravitational force. Before Newton, things just fell,
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it really would take a long time to explain this. Well, I'll try to give you a kind of a quick synopsis.
Okay.
Newton worked on Kepler's equations. So what he did is he installed this fictional force and added the mass of two heavenly bodies to it. So, and from that, everything got extrapolated to the furthest reaches of the universe, and it's all wrong. I mean, these quacks actually think, okay, well, we figured out the mythamathematics of this, and like Jupiter weighs 300 times more than the Earth, so the sun pulls 300 times stronger on Jupiter than it does on Earth. I mean, this is kind of the fallacious foundations of the kind of quackery they believe in. I mean, most people don't understand what quackery it is. And that's why I wrote this book. It's only 77 pages long. Anybody can read it. It's written for the layman. And you can see what they teach in college. Mm-hmm. And immediately, anybody with any kind of common sense would say, well, this is ridiculous. All this is completely absurd. And it is. So there is no gravitational force. I've proved that. I mean, even their scientists, even in their own mathematics, they'll say, well, the gravitational force is only 10 to the minus 29th of that of the electric force. Okay, well, 10 with 29 zeros is actually something that's completely incomprehensible to any human. No human can think about this. But these quacks, they love to use these kind of numbers, 10 to the minus 29th, 10 to the 45th. It's all bullshit. There's no truth to any of this stuff. I'm sorry for using the bullshit term, but I don't know any way. I don't know any other way to put it to accentuate how absurd and ridiculous this whole gravity thing is. So what I'm saying is there's only one force in the electric universe. That is electricity. What you see when you see around the Earth is the compression of Earth. I could go into a long diatribe about this, but it has to do with the twin opposing vortices that go through the poles and that expand through the equator, and it's the cube and the sphere. I mean, all this is covered in my work on Russellian science. It's all explained very clearly, but it would take hours to give it proper justice. So I would just say that everything is a product of electric force. The Earth is being compressed into its condition by electric force.
Okay.
Not gravitational force. There's no such, the other thing I should say too is because of this myth of gravity being extrapolated into all this stuff, there is no such thing as dark matter, dark energy, WIMPs, MONs, machos. There's a list of about 25 or 30 things that are based on this myth called gravity, which are purely fictional. They do not exist. So when I went in, I could have written a book for every single one of those, but it's easier just to take the Achilles tendon out of the entire racket and just expose gravity for what it is. Everything falls with gravity. The Big Bang, black holes, dark matter. I mean, all this stuff is purely fictional. There's no truth to any of it.
Including dark matter. That is surprising to me.
Yeah,
the gravity
it's a complete myth.
Was surprising to me when you and I first started talking many months ago, and you sent me some material. And by the way, viewers, I will include his information in the description box. Please read his book, go to his website and check out the material, because it is going to turn everything you think you know about science on its ear. But where was I? Gravity. So even dark matter is bogus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's an artifact of the mythematics of gravitation cosmology. There's no such thing as gravity. So all of these things fall with it. Every last one of them is pure myth. So It's an electric universe. And these people, you know, these quacks, they don't want to admit that. They'd rather you go off into string theory and believe there's 11 dimensions and one-dimensional strings and all sorts of other psychotic, you know, claims. None of that's true either. It's complete garbage. All mythamathetics.
Wow. And you believe they will not set the record straight? Why? Too many careers will fall. We have to revamp everything we think we know, the whole entire education system. They want to keep us in.
Yeah.
What is your theory there?
Yeah. Well, it's not a theory, it's fact. It's the truth. The entire system is rigged, and it's rigged with false science. So we keep pumping gas, burning oil, doing the nuke reactor crap. I mean, it's all set up for absolute slavery. I mean, if we were to have free energy implosion turbines in every home, first of all, we would have the greatest national security imaginable. With that, and all of us being armed to the teeth, free energy and lots of weapons, and who's going to mess with us, right? But they don't want either one of those. They want centralized production of energy, which you can see has turned out to be a complete nightmare. It's a huge mistake as far as national security goes. Now they're talking about doing rolling blackouts when there's winds. They're going to be cutting off the electricity because the grid is a freaking abysmal failure. It's a complete disaster. You think about the enormous amount of money that it costs to run this grid, to maintain it, to string all this wire, all the metals used in the towers. There's no shortage of copper or aluminum or steel or anything. It's all been wasted on a slave grid to enslave all of us.
Absolutely.
So
and you're
every last bit that can be claimed. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm a slave to gas. I've got to burn gas in a generator in order to survive. I have to have electricity. I wish I had a 9-inch in diameter implosion turbine, which is all it would take to have in your house, and you'd be able to generate 20,000 watts a day, no problem. You could charge an electric car. You have energy for every single thing you do. You wouldn't need any batteries. That thing would run for 30 or 40 years without having to change the batteries. I mean, the bearings. And then you could give that implosion turbine to your ancestors for like maybe 1,000 years, you know? And do they want us being free like that? No, they want us being slaved into the grid and to pumping gas and oil, because that's what they're invested in. They own all the means of energy production, all the means of war, and they own the central banks. So they've got it all, and the pharmacies and the insurance and everything else too, you know, Hollywood as well. But you see what I'm saying? They've got the very core of where all the money's being made on this planet through slave technologies.
Yeah. I recently wrote an article on fracking, and I know that's been around since the 40s, but people don't realize. I think sometimes you can get something in the news, people go bonkers over it for a little while, then they settle down and they move on to the next big event, and they kind of forget what's really going on. And fracking is actually a really big problem in terms of our fuel and our energy sources. Because of how dangerous. It's so dangerous. And it's unnecessary. And that's what makes me mad, is it's unnecessary.
Yeah, and the energy barons have really destroyed this planet. They've destroyed the climate. They've destroyed, God only knows how much Earth. And, you know, they've drilled all these wells everywhere. Do you think they're going to clean them up? Do you think that all this leaking oil all over the planet where they've drilled the wells, they're not gonna clean that stuff up? It's a disaster. It's an environmental disaster, and they'll work it as long as they possibly can, and then they'll leave this mess on the planet for us to clean up.
Their poison water tables are different areas. The water supplies all over this state. And then states like New York that are opposed to fracking, they allow the debris and all of that extra toxin stuff to be brought in and disposed of in New York. So their no fracking ban is pointless. Because if they're not actually participating in it, then they're allowing the debris to be disposed of there, which is just as poisonous and toxic to people who are breathing the air, drinking the water. So we're creating a huge problem here with that.
Absolutely. And Trump is making it worse because he's trying to deregulate all this stuff. He did North Dakota, allowing that pipeline to go through, because they don't care about the environment. You know, he and the people he worked for, they could care less about this beautiful, wonderful planet that we lived on. You know, they do not mind destroying it. It means nothing to them at all. And this is the sad thing. It really is. I mean, if Trump was really the real deal, he would be pushing for free energy technologies. And I see that claim being made by Q, but I believe Q is a psyop. I don't believe it at all.
Now
It's
let's
just
talk about
flag
that,
wavers.
because I've heard about Q being a psyop. For those of you who follow QAnon, let's talk about why you believe that.
They're just cheerleaders. They're just flag wavers for Trump. I mean, Trump is the biggest. He's owned by the Zionists. There's no question about that. His daughter's one. His son-in-law's one. His son-in-law is best friends with Netanyahu. Trump thinks, Kissinger and Netanyahu and even Giuliani are all heroes. These people are all monsters. As we all know, they're not heroes. They're not working for us, the Goyim. They're working for their own Zionist cause, which is a new world order, a one world government run out of Israel, which is an illegal state. So, nothing's going to change with our current president, and politics aren't the solution. They're actually the problem.
Yes. Yep, I believe that as well. So for the viewers that still think that there are two different parties, Democrats and Republican, what do you say about that?
Total fraud. It's all the same. Both sides of all conflict are always owned by the same exact people.
Yep. The Rothschilds. Because I have said, I don't know how many times, there's no money in peace. There's no money in peace. And so most people don't realize, or maybe they're starting to wake up. You tell me what you see in terms of the consciousness movement. Are people waking up to the fact that this whole government is a sham and everything that they put in front of us?
Not many. And, the thing is, peace could be extremely profitable. You just have to change the direction of where we're going. Everything we're doing is backwards. This entire explosion-based, fuel-sucking, war-causing nightmare slave technology that we're slaved into is working against nature. If we were to turn things around and use implosion-based technologies and work with nature, look, we've got a huge amount of filth on this world to clean up. We have all of our forests have been absolutely devastated, completely logged, clear cut to the extreme. All the indigenous original old growths have been wiped out, in places like, the United States. I mean, there's some places on the earth where there's still this stuff, but anywhere they can get their logging gear into, they'll pretty much kill everything, and it's horrific. If you go on Google Earth and you look at our forests, they're nothing but Swiss cheese. And you're looking at second and third generation tree farms generally. You're not looking at ancient indigenous multi-species forests, which are healthy forests. You're looking at monocrop tree farms. And that's why they're all full of beetles. That's why it's a complete disaster. And it's just an abomination to see the way that our forests have been treated, as well as the rest of the planet. Our waterways, the ocean is a dump for endless plastics and all that. And we're doing everything wrong. So we could actually put billions of people to work on this planet by changing the direction and bringing free energy technologies into the world, cleaning up the environment and restoring our forests, restoring our oceans, restoring our streams, and then restoring the entire infrastructure of the planet. I mean, all the roads are a mess here. All the money has gone into the pocket of criminals. We live in a pretty much a ghetto, nowadays, with all these homeless people living in the streets. I mean, it's insane.
And disappearing. So do you know who Dane, I think it's Wigington?
Yes.
Do you know who he is?
He lives real close to me. Yes, I do. He lives very close to me.
I believe it was him who had mentioned that it's possibly too late for us to turn around what's been going on planet Earth. The damage that has been done is so severe that she cannot possibly recover for at least 100 years. It may have been him that said that. Do you feel like our Earth can replenish itself if we were to stop right now?
Yeah, if we were to stop right now and completely change the slave text and go the exact opposite direction, yeah, there would be time. I believe we could do it, but we're not going to do that. You see, they have no intention of letting go of power, and they want to keep us slaved into coal and gas and oil and uranium. So they have all the power. Who's going to change it? There's not enough awake people on this planet to do it. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Now, for those that are awake or awakening, what can they do in order to not contribute to this mess that we have. Because I always say it's actually pretty easy. Don't stick your money in a bank. Don't go to the doctor. Don't turn on the television. Don't buy into these things that they, you know, with the vaccines. Don't go do those things, because if you were to pull
Yeah.
back, the system would crash.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
what
I
would you
agree. Those are
recommend?
all good. Everything you did, and especially getting rid of those stupid iPhones. Throw those things in the trash immediately. You know, I mean, you don't need that. You
Yeah.
don't need an iPhone. Get rid of it. You know, and this Gen 5 coming on, it's even worse.
Oh gosh.
Just yeah, I mean, just resist the system. Don't go watch advertisements. Don't buy into the whole Google thing, and don't be a willing pawn of these these guys that are just pushing consumerism,
Mm.
mindless consumerism.
Now, who's they? Let's talk about the they at the top of the pyramid. Who's controlling the world? We've talked a little bit about the New World Order. Let's dig into that a little bit and go over who is they? Who are they?
Well, the Zionists and the Jesuits are at the top of the pyramid that we know of, but apparently I hear a lot of talk about families that are even above them, from ancient Rome, people that actually created the Vatican, things like this. Whether these things are true or not, I don't know. I mean, there's people that think there's off-worlders that are beyond the tip of the pyramid that are actually I don't know these things. I don't know at all. I tend to believe that there's probably some very wicked people beyond the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds.
And the Rothschilds. So you think there are families above them?
I see. I've
So like
heard
maybe
I've
the
heard that
Piso
information.
family,
Like who?
the Pisos.
Yeah. They originally authored the New Testament. Yeah,
Mhm.
people like that. Yeah, that's I've heard plenty of that. I can't say it's true or not, but I'm inclined to lean in that direction to believe it. Because I don't believe in the religions at all. I believe
Right.
all religions are just used for mind control,
Let's talk
including
about why
Christians.
you feel that way, including Christians, because I feel that way as well. So when people are bearing their testimonies and they're making comments in the thread with 1,000 scriptures, it means nothing to me, because I've done some research on religion, all different theologies, including Christianity and its history. So
Yeah.
tell me why you
Yes.
feel that way, and where you would point people in order to dig a little further so that they can challenge their paradigm on that. Because I think ultimately our spirits want to be in truth. They crave the truth.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Yeah. The same as you've done. It's basically study of comparative mythology, and I've got a couple of decades involved in that as well because it's passion. I want to know the truth about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Religion, God, all this stuff. I had to know the truth about this. So it was actually 1992. I was camping. I rented a hunting lodge up in Southern California, Colorado, at about 9,000 feet, and I was up there for a month. I had just bought both volumes of Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, written by Gerald Massey. It's about 900,000 pages or something. So I went through that up there on the Continental Divide, which was kind of like the divide of my own life, symbolically speaking. And after reading that book, I realized, every single thing in the Bible is plagiarized from the Egyptian or Babylonian sources. There's nothing new. It's the names have been changed, but the basic mathematics, the astrotheology, all that comes from Egyptian, yet it's a dumbed down fairy tale kind of version. It's not nearly at the level of something, say, as the seven Hermetic principles of Hermes. I mean, that is truth.
Mm-hmm.
That is provable truth, the seven Hermetic principles, and those are core to the science I teach. So I know that is provable. Whereas these other things are just, fairy tales and nightmares, really. I mean, a lot of them. So, but
Well,
that was the one book that really freed me. I would highly suggest that to anybody who's interested. But there's many other books. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
no,
Alvin
I
Boyd.
apologize. I was going to say I would highly encourage anybody to read the principles, the Hermetic teachings.
Yeah, the Kabbalion is pretty good as well. The Kabbalion was written in 1908, I believe. It is couched in kind of the nuke atom and ether physics, the theories of that time, which are false. But it does go into great explanation about halfway through the book into the Hermetic principles themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that those are undeniable. This is the way the universe works.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you are a wealth of information. And this is what comes of study. And I think most people don't want to do it because they're busy trying to put food on the table, they're exhausted, and they just don't know where to start. They don't have the energy to dig through all of this. You've put in 25 years of constant study, and most people are not that disciplined. So they're not going to gain that type of knowledge. And what I'm hoping people will do is pay attention to the fact that this is what it takes. If you're staying up
Yeah,
till 2 and
it
3 o'clock
really
in
does.
the morning reading or studying, this is what it's going to take, my friends, in order to tear down the lies and get to the truth, because nobody else is going to hand it to you.
Yeah, and a lot of reading is required, an enormous amount. If you really want to get to the bottom of this stuff, you can't just watch YouTube videos,
Right.
somebody else's condensation or their own interpretation. You really need to get in and like read Victor Schauberger, read all of his, everything that he wrote, everything that's in his words, all the stuff by Callum Coates, things like that. Read everything you can about comparative mythology. I would also suggest Alvin Boyd Kuhn is another person that'll give you deep insights into the correct interpretation of these mythologies. These are not literal histories. None of this stuff happened. It's
Mhm.
all pure myth, you know?
Where do you see us heading as a people? Where's planet Earth heading, in particular, the United States?
Well, at the moment, we're doing everything wrong. We're still, we're 100% controlled by the Zionists. So that's wrong, you know? We're just heading in the same direction we've been heading. There's a lot of, the QAnon trying to say, oh, everybody, we're doing great. The economy is doing wonderful. Everything's getting better. I don't buy any of it. I haven't seen any of that myself, and I don't buy it.
I don't either. When I hear about 4,700 indictments coming, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, when they're behind bars, then I'll believe it. But
Yeah, yeah,
until I
yeah.
see some indictments actually happening, I don't believe it. Do you know anything about McCain and him being euthanized?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's just another story I hear. I hear he was,
Okay. What do you think
shot or
about that?
euthanized or whatever. Could be. I have no idea. To be honest, it's a rumor as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, but he would deserve it for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, McCain was a monster.
Hmm.
And, like you said, I'm not going to believe any of this stuff until I see Hillary, Obama, the Clintons, the Bushes, Larry Silverstein, Giuliani. I mean, once those people are behind bars, then I'll believe it. I
Right.
will actually believe something's being done. I don't think anybody's going to jail. I don't think anybody's going to be held accountable for their crimes. And the New World Order is just marching on. They've
See,
got their people in place.
I'm, and I hate to admit this, but I'm afraid you're right. I know that you're right, because until we see something, we have to assume that they're on track, they're on course. And for those of you who are still on board with Trump, I'm not a Hillary supporter whatsoever. She's as evil and treasonous as they come. But I'm also saying that if you are still on board with Trump, you don't know him. You're not looking at his cabinet. He's filled with Goldman Sachs. He's filled with Zionists in his administration. Look who Jared Kushner is. You have to look who he has surrounded himself with. And if he wanted these things done, they'd be done. But they're not. They're not getting done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody, a
He's
friend
really
of
being supported by the Christian. Yeah, he's really being supported by the Christian Zionists. That's a
mine.
big, the QAnon audience, I would imagine, is mainly Christian Zionists who are willing to look the other way and pretend like, Zionism's a good thing because somehow Israel is related to their understanding of the Bible. But what they don't understand is these people are Khazars. They have no right to return to Israel because they're not from Israel. They converted to Judaism, you know, basically in 850 AD. But if you read Anatoly Fomenko's work, the Jesuits added 1,000 years into the timeline, the Dark Ages, which don't even exist. So that would mean they've only been into this a
Uh-huh.
few hundred years since all this trouble started. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Uh, it's not been 1,300 years. It's only been a few hundred. I really believe that. I believe Anatoly Fomenko is right. The Jesuits just inserted this fake Dark Ages into the timeline to push history further back to make it seem like it was way back when in fact it was very recent.
Yeah.
So
They have a different calendar that they're using. I'm not sure many are aware of that, but there are a couple of different calendars in play. The Julian and the Gregorian calendars, and what they're focusing on is very different than what they give us. But I'm glad you brought in the Christian Zionist perspective here, because I want to poke the beehive a little bit and dispel this idea that there is a Judeo-Christian alliance, when that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm not sure how they're getting a lot of these Christians to support Israel, but they're taking you for a ride, people. They're taking you for an emotional, a spiritual, and most importantly here, a financial ride.
Right. Even if you're looking from the so-called spiritual side of this, the rabbis claim Jesus is in a vat of boiling excrement in hell.
Yes,
So
they.
how in the hell can it be a Judeo-Christian country? How can any Christian want to hold hands with these people that, according to the mythology, murdered their savior? I
Mhm.
don't get it. Don't get it at all. Makes no sense.
I don't either. I just recently, let me see if I can find it. I read a couple of books on Jews. And most recently, this DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline. This is a good book, even though it is filled with a lot of Christian scriptures and so forth. But The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sand is also a good one. I think it's really important that we dispel this notion of the Jews being the seed of Abraham, when that's not the truth. They are Khazars, and we can prove that through DNA testing. They're no more holy than you and I are.
Yeah, well, the Christian Zionists believe the Hebrews. They think
Mhm.
that these are the same people of the Old Testament, and they're not. I mean, those people are long gone. The few
Mhm.
Sephardi Jews, I mean, the Zionists are trying to eliminate those people. You know about that when they created the state of Israel. They had that one guy with the doctor that had the X-ray machines given to him by the United States, and they gave 50,000 Sephardi youth these massive, X-rays to their heads. Were like 10,000, 20,000 times extra doses to fry their brains. And they want to eliminate these dark, the Ethiopian Jews and the dark colored Jews, because then people question, well, why you white, semi-white people from Central Russia, you Khazars, why do you look so different? Oh, because you're not Hebrews. You're not these people of the Old Testament. Therefore, you have no right to return to Israel, because you people were never there. You just came in, invaded this country, Palestine, and stole it from these people.
Mhm.
That's the truth.
It is the truth, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. And this is what I was referring to in the beginning. This is the one sect of people that you are not allowed to criticize, period. And yet, what they are doing to the rest of the world is absolutely criminal, including this lie that they are God's chosen people and we owe them. We don't owe them shit. I get really irritated with that kind of thinking, because it's a lie, and they're playing on the goodness of people's hearts to want to be supportive, and they're taking us for a ride. If anybody has ever read the Talmud or the Protocols of Zion, you will see exactly who these people are and what they think about you and I, whose heartstrings they're pulling on.
That's exactly right. I mean, doesn't get much more evil than what they're up to. And you add in the Frankists and the Sabbatians, which took it up a few. It's like the Zionism on steroids. I mean, these people all went out and basically decided they were going to go the left-hand path. Of their God, this Yahweh creature that they worship. The left-hand path is the evil path, and their idea was the more evil we do, the quicker our Messiah will come. So we're doing God's will. And I mean, how can you make up something more twisted than that?
Mhm.
Do as much evil as you can for good. War is peace. I mean, it's satanic. It's evil.
It is. It absolutely is. And I don't mean to imply that all Jews are evil. I don't want to say that. I would be willing to bet that many of them don't even realize what their actual history is. Do you feel like they do, or is this a little secret that they all know and we don't?
Not at all. Not at all. I can be very honest and say I've had probably close to a dozen Jewish girlfriends in my life, and have known them very intimately. I've never, and a lot of Jewish male friends as well, and never ever have I heard one word of even their culture, of the bar mitzvahs, of their cultural beliefs, let alone the religious beliefs. Most of the Jews I know don't even follow Judaism. and they're not Zionists either. So I would say they're acculturated Jews that have decided, that their religion and their culture is really not for them. They don't relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could say I'm not against Jews at all. I've loved many Jews. I've had many close friends that are Jews, but the Zionist is not a Jew. It's
Mm-hmm.
something different. Zionism is a political movement. It's not a spiritual or cultural movement. It is
Right.
purely political, and it's run by people that are definitely Satanists,
Yeah.
evil people.
So before people blow up the threads calling us anti-Semites, I just wanted to make that clear. So we weren't throwing everybody into that category, because I know there are many Jewish people who disagree with the Zionist movements. In fact, they adamantly oppose it, as they should.
Yeah, and Khazars are not Semites anyway.
Right.
Semites means like the Hebrew language or the
Hebrew, the
Phoenician language or
Arabic.
the Babylonian. These are Semitic languages, and people who speak those are Semites. But the Hebrews, I mean the Khazars are not Semites. They are converts to Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently too. As I said, I don't think it's a few hundred years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And look, when all of our trouble happened on this planet a few hundred years ago, these Khazar bankers came in and started owning Europe. And from there on, it's been downward spiral into the depths of hell ever since.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree with that. Wow. Okay, so what else should people be aware of as they are looking around and they are questioning their reality? What else should they be focusing on?
Probably their health. I think we all have to be very conscious of, that first of all, we're being sprayed constantly with chemtrails. And then we've got all these new technologies, the Wi-Fi, the Gen 5, all this stuff we're being exposed to. So we're getting it from every single angle. And a lot of people are getting very sick from this. So you have to become educated on how you can protect yourself from these things. And leaky gut tends to be one of the big things that's really affecting a lot of people and causing autoimmune diseases. And you need to study about these things. You need to understand the importance of copper and zinc and magnesium. You need to get the right minerals back in your diet. You need to have a healthy diet, quit eating corporate foods, quit drinking these corporate soft drinks and the high fructose corn syrup. You've got to get off all these poisons that are pumped out by corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big job in just itself, and just getting, I've been dedicated a lot of my time over the last couple of years to getting rid of leaky gut myself. I know it's possible, and I've reversed that. And so I think that's critical. I mean, how can you fight the forces of hell if you're a sick person, and they've got most people in a state of obesity and sickness right now.
Yes, they do. And then they can funnel them right into the criminal medical system that's meant to keep you sick, because they get so much money. Was it 400 billion a year in cancer treatments and so forth? But leaky gut is actually a huge problem. I've had to work on that myself. And one of the things that my husband and I did recently is we ordered 100% pure copper pitcher off of Amazon. A lot of the Eastern religions and people still use copper, and we have some copper goblets that we use, some pure copper. So we've been using just like a nano copper as well to ingest, because it's so healing for the body. I don't think people realize just how magnificent copper is.
Yeah, and it's really central to the entire problem with leaky gut, and I tell you, what I've done myself has made a huge difference, is gotten into bone broth. And I make like a rib bone jambalaya, which is, basically pork ribs cooked for about 10 hours. And I mean, they're cooked so long, you can actually eat most of the rib. You can chew up the bone and eat it if you want to. But a lot of that gets into the soup, and then you make, a lot of root vegetables, put lots of root vegetables in there, and eat that daily. And I tell you, that's been one of the biggest things that's helped to rebuild my gut.
Mm-hmm.
And fresh goat milk kefir. Those are the two biggest things. I make my own goat milk kefir, with kefir grains.
Now, I wasn't aware of that with the bone broth. I've done that as well. And actually what I've done with Whole Foods is when I go in to get the ribs, I have them cut down the middle of the ribs so that the marrow is more accessible when I'm making the broth, because it is so good for healing the intestinal tissue. So
absolutely.
That's a great one. Tell us a little bit about this goat milk kefir.
Yeah, have you ever made kefir yourself?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, well, you can get the grains, like eBay, like a few bucks, just order
Okay.
them on eBay. That's the easiest way to probably get them. But you get these little grains, and it's the easiest thing in the world. You just put those in a jar and then pour the milk on them. You don't have to like heat it like you do with yogurt. Boil the milk and then wait for it to cool down. That's a long, involved process. These grains are so powerful that nothing else can compete with them. You just take cold milk, dump it into the thing, and let it sit on your counter for 2 or 3 days, and you strain off the kefir grains, put them in another bottle, and do it again. And it just keeps going and keep creating more kefir grains, which you can share with your friends and family and get everybody on it, because it really, really makes a huge difference.
Fantastic. If your guts are not working correctly, your entire health is compromised. Your immune system is down. So I would encourage people to look into that. Couple of other things I know that you have done as well as myself, and that is to remove the amalgams, the mercury amalgams from your teeth. You've had a lot of dental work done, correct?
Oh, yeah, I have no metal in my mouth at all.
Right. So you got to get rid of the metal. And just because you have the amalgams taken out, people, you still have to cleanse the heavy metals from your system, because once it's in there, you have to then have something like a sulfur-based product in order to pull it out, because it will embed in the tissues. Is that correct?
It truly is. And I would just also suggest phytoplankton as the other really powerful source for rebuilding the intestinal lining.
Mhm.
It's got a kind of a funky taste, but if you can get past that, mix it in a smoothie or something, it's really it's powerful as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners? What can they do in order to get on the track of truth? You suggested some reading materials, some authors to look into, working on our health. What is there anything else that you can suggest that they do in order to discover truth?
Get immersed in nature as much as you can. Go to some quiet places and be silent. Listen to nature, and just immerse yourself in nature. She is the greatest teacher that there is.
Mhm.
I would really suggest people look into Victor Schauberger, and he's probably the greatest teacher of our times. If you can get your head around his material, then you can see a completely different world we could have. We don't have to live this hellacious slave world. We could be living in a utopian world, seriously. If the free energy technologies were released and we all had access to them, then we could start actually putting ourselves to work on fixing this planet, which we've destroyed.
Mhm.
It's our duty to do that, It
It
really is.
is. It is, as well as fix. One of the things that really bothers me are all the different ways that we divide and conquer. We're always separating ourselves and creating issues with fellow human beings, whether that's because they have a different skin color, different religion, different socioeconomic status, and the list goes on and on. And this is all nonsense. This is all by design. And so we need to throw all that stuff out and realize we're all in the same boat. We're all
Yeah.
slaves to their system. No one has privilege over another person at all. They have their control mechanisms that they're using for the rest of us, but we all struggle in some way. So we need to get over this divide and conquer nonsense and realize that we need to start loving one another. We need to take care of ourselves, and we need to take care of this planet. Otherwise, we're screwed.
Absolutely. Quit getting polarized. Quit taking a side. It's Jesus against Satan. How about leaving both of them? How about you don't want Satan, you don't want Jesus? How about it's either the Rothschilds and their New World Order, or it's the Venus Project, for example. Forget it. They're both bullshit. Uh, there's a middle way in all these things that's never ever talked about, because both sides of the two options are always owned by the same people. They
Mhm.
never wanted you to hear about a third possibility, and that is don't buy either side. Don't get polarized, you know?
I think
Don't
when
get triggered.
exactly, and I don't vote because in my mind that means I believe in this false system that we have set up. So I stopped voting once I realized what was going on with the Gore nonsense back in Florida years ago. And I
Yeah.
started looking into that, I realized what a false system it was, and I stopped participating in it because I don't want to participate in a false construct and continue to perpetuate those types of lies. So I just pulled away from it completely. And I think people need to do that. Stop participating.
Yeah, politics is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the problem. And what we need to do is begin joining together as, just humans who love and help each other. I mean, that's the only way we can, if we rely on them to solve our problems, they will never, ever be solved, ever.
Wow. Well, I thank you for your time and your expertise. We will leave your description or your information in the description box so they know how to find you. And I really hope everybody has taken what Robert has had to share to heart and really listened to what he's saying, because our world doesn't have to be what it is. We can make things better. It's our, like he was saying, our responsibility, our obligation to do that, to contribute more than what we are doing. We're taking away right now. We're being a deficit on the planet and on humanity, rather than being constructive and adding to the beautiful earth that we've been given to be stewards of. Did I lose you?
Nope. I can only say I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's in our hands. If we let them run this racket, there is no hope. So there has to be a grassroots thing where people are just tired of the entire system. They realize that politics is not going to be the solution, nor is religion, nor is science, nor is the backward science we've been taught, because it's total bullshit too. So no, we've really got to band together, and the power is in us, the masses, although most people are asleep. This is the problem. So it's going to require an awakening, and that we've got a long ways to go, a very long ways to go.
Well, and we outnumber them. We really outnumber them. So the power lies in us. We are very powerful beings. We are creator beings. And if we were to stand up together rather than this divide nonsense, we could really make a change here.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, fantastic. Any parting words for us, Robert?
No, I would just say that, we've all got to take responsibility for our own actions. There's nobody coming to save us. Each and every one of us should really get out and apply ourselves to making this world a better place, rather than, fighting over retarded stuff like whether the earth's flat or not, which it's not. But, you know what I mean? I mean, there's just so much BS out there these days, and so many psyops being rolled out to basically create this divide and conquer scenario. So just don't get polarized. Don't take sides on any of these moronic psyops, and get your own life together. Get your own house together. That's what it's important. Band together with those you love, your friends and family, and don't ever be afraid to share the truth. You're going to be laughed at a lot. I believe me. I've been taking it for decades. I know all about the criticism and the laugh, but there's nobody, not one person on this planet who's been able to debunk my books on gravity. There's not one.
Because
it's the truth. That's freeenergyandfreethinking.com, which is abbreviated. That's FEANDFT.com. I guess we could probably put a link on your channel for this. And you can find the books there, and as well as my 77 G-Slinger channel, where I've done most of the teaching. I mean, I've got lots of playlists on cosmology explaining everything about it. And I do most of my teaching in the video descriptions. I have lengthy descriptions I put in there explaining the content. And in the comment sections, I do a lot of teaching as well.
We can't be afraid to ask questions. We can't be afraid to seek after the answers, and we can't be afraid to be wrong.
Right. And I wouldn't be so audacious if I wasn't absolutely sure. I mean, I don't know of anybody who came out and said gravity didn't exist before me. And now there are lots of like flat earthers glommed onto my stuff and started pretending like I supported them, and they stole my stuff and started saying there was no gravity and all this stuff. But I tell you, nobody's been able to debunk what I've shown, which is the reality that we've been taught a false science. And it's not by accident. It's by design. It was totally planned to keep us enslaved in the backwards technology we're currently enslaved to.
We need a re-education. That's what it boils down to in every single thing. You can't name one
Absolutely.
area of academia that has not been tainted, because everything that we have been taught is a lie. So people, please
Truly. Yeah.
start questioning, start reading, start doing your own homework. Don't take anybody's word for it. I think you would agree with me, Robert, right? Don't take anybody's word for it. You have to do the work yourself. You've got to put in the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, read my 1,200-page book on free energy and free thinking. Read it, and then follow all the hundreds and links and all the hundreds of videos. It's, I didn't write this because I'm trying to deceive somebody or anything like that. I wrote this and left a trail of my own discoveries so other people could do the same thing. And the only way you're going to convince yourself is by going through this bit by bit, studying it, mentally imaging the processes. I mean, mental imaging is our most powerful tool. Instead of us mentally imaging, they're giving us Hollywood images on idiot box screens and theaters and stuff, filling your mind full of all sorts of garbage like sci-fi, time travel or something. People actually believe, oh yeah, we can time travel. I saw it in a movie. Moronic things like this. There's no such thing as time travel. But since people have seen these things from Hollywood and they've gotten all these images implanted in their minds, they think, oh, well, it's possible. Maybe we can time travel. No, you can't time travel. It's impossible to fast forward the infinite universe, and it's impossible to fast rewind the entire infinite universe. It would require a machine that had infinite power, and no such thing exists. So, you see what I'm saying? We've been just indoctrinated with tons of these myths, and then people start believing they're possible.
Yeah.
And they're not.
So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. What I'm going to encourage people to do is, as you research, if you don't understand something, or even if you disagree with something, stick it on the back burner for a while, because you may come back to it at a later date when you have a broader perspective, more knowledge that you can draw from so that you can then digest that information. But as you go through the different books, the different conspiracy theories, the different facts, just be in a place of being open as you consider these things. And then once you have a pretty solid foundation, then you can maybe go, okay, you know what? I do believe this is trash. I know this is true. I know this is not. But right now, in the beginning of research, most people, I think, are probably not going to have the tools in order to be able to draw those conclusions as you did. So they need to be pretty open-minded.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time for most people. I mean, I didn't learn this overnight. It took me 25 years.
Yeah.
And, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pages of reading. I mean, I'm not getting my stuff off YouTube.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's where people go, they shut down, is go, oh, I don't have 25 years to do that. But you have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get caught in this misalignment that you can't make sense of this world. You can't make sense of why you're here and what you're seeing and what your life purpose is if you don't bother with that.
Yep. And it all requires work. I mean, you can't be a great guitarist or a great painter just by trying. You have to put in a lifetime worth of work and study. I mean, all these things have to happen in order to become that. And if you want to be a seer, and that's the path you and I are on, it's to know the truth, to be a seer. And it's going to require an enormous amount of work.
It really does. Thousands of hours. I'm not sure people understand how much that takes. I personally have logged in years, not 25 years at this point, but about 8 years of research and thousands of hours of study. Thousands of hours, late into the night, lots of books read, lots of time in meditation, lots of time in prayer, lots of time outside just thinking and pondering. I think people would really be surprised at how much they would know and understand if they turned off all their electronics and just sat in silence.
Yeah, and I think really what the people need to do is get that burning desire in their hearts to know the truth, like you have, like I have, like other truthers that are out there. people that are uncompromised, people that are not polarized, people that are not, part of the racket. There are real truthers out there, and I've met plenty of them, online. So, yeah, you have to have that burning desire. You've got to know what want to know what the truth is about our Creator, about creation, and about everything that's going on this planet.
Yep. Yep. Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me several months ago when I got started, and you've shared many resources with me, and I've learned quite a bit. Your knowledge of cosmology just far exceeds mine. I'll let you handle that corner, but I have learned quite a bit, and I'm hoping that people will go on over to your channel, read your books, and learn from you.
Thank you. It's been really great being here with you, Madeline. Thanks so much.
Well, it's long overdue. I appreciate your time. You guys check him out. I'll leave his information in the description box. You can reach me at galacticstoryteller.com or my gmail.com. Leave your comments below. Be polite. Provide resources and facts. That's all I ask. Like and subscribe. You guys have a great day, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks so much, Robert.
Thank you. Take care.